Welcome back, everybody. Today we'll be doing an analysis on hope, resilience, organization, and how all of this ties into systematic oppression, whether it be obvious or in less obvious manners. I know that I've been very late with this schedule, with this upload. It's been like a couple months since my last video, but I've been very busy nowadays. I'm studying for university exams and I have a lot to do. And I wanted to do this video today because I have some recent things that have happened to me, and I thought that they could make for a very good video topic, and I could, draw some lessons from those instances. Anyway, I want to separate this video into a couple of different chapters, each examining a different portion of a certain ordeal, let's say. And okay, I'm gonna separate it into three parts. First, the resistance. Second, the system that the rebellion is rebelling against. And the third, the oppression. And I'm gonna go in order. And no, okay, I'm gonna go with this order: the system, the rebellion, and the oppression. With the system, let's begin. We're going to talk about why the system exists in the first place and why it is being rebelled against and whether that has any logic behind it. And to not make this video incredibly vague and just say the system, we're going to have to give some examples, and I'm going to have to use my own experiences in this. And I'm going to make it a school. It doesn't have to be my school, it could be any school. Let's begin. The system that we're going to analyze today is the school. The school as a whole system, it could be, but let's talk about how the system's norms apply in a specific singular ecosystem, which is one school. Okay, what do schools do exactly? And why do people rebel against that? And how do they rebel against that? Okay, let's talk about it. Personally, from what I can see and what I've heard and what is objectively known, schools are places of obedience and education, first and foremost, right? Because it's in the name. You go there to get schooled, right? That makes sense. And with schooling, there is also the fact that we need to raise our children, raise anybody really, to be integrated into society. I'm going to say, I'm going to look into the historical part of schools. The more systematic schools that we know of today started appearing after the Industrial Revolution, when the workforce became a whole lot more organized. It became a whole lot more demanding because the parents would have to go to the factories to keep on their employment. And women, especially women, would be additionally exploited, so they will also be working. And so somebody had to look after the kids during the day because the parents were working, and they needed specialized workers because with the industrial revolution you have machines, you have production lines, and you have these all these sort of technologies that not everybody can use, and that you need a lot of these people who are experts in that topic, and they need to be educated on that. And also, you also need to take care of children, because if you don't take care of children, the parents will not make any children because they can't look after them, and with no children there are no workers, so you can't keep the system going, and therefore you need an institution like school. This is a very very brief overlay of how schools came to be. They of course change from region to region from time to time, but this is pretty much the most essential part of how schools came to be. And with that topic, let's go on to how exactly the schools integrate children into the society. From the age of 6 or 5, for me it was 5, you start your school with your you start your school education, and from there you receive all kinds of classes, right? You receive I'm gonna just directly translates like values lessons, maybe religion lessons, and you learn your own language, and you learn mathematics, sciences, all these sorts of things. All of these are programmed in such a way to make you, you know, understand the society that you are living in. But with a big but here, it is not just about the textbooks and the education, like the formal education that you're being taught, but how you learn those and how that is being taught to you. In most schools around the world, teachers have absolute authority. What does this mean? Okay, let's say that, like in most schools, I know that some countries have a different system, but as far as I know, as far as to my knowledge, if we were to say that this line, yeah, this line is a teacher, I'm just using symbols here, then these lines are kids, let's say students sitting. I know that this is a very basic observation, but it is important to note that these dots, while they're all students, only directly see the teacher, and the teacher can't see all of them. And they are, well, it is very awkward for them to turn around and look at each other or look back because there are going to be a lot of more students here, right? So the entire focus and the entire lead is on the teacher. And education itself is not very flexible. In most education systems, and especially the one that I know, it is the teacher's word that counts and is the absolute authority. Well, you don't really participate in the lesson. Well, you talk from time to time, they listen to your thoughts, but it is never really meaningful. It is just there to give you, well, give you hope. We'll come back to that. I want to underline hope, and we're going to come back to hope, but we're talking about the beginning of education, right? Hope. If you can't read this, yeah, it's in reverse, but anyway, hope will play a very big factor, and how crushing hope is a type of oppression in of itself. Anyway, in school, the teacher is the absolute authority. Let's say when a teacher does something bad to a student, the teacher's word will always have more value. When there is a dispute between students and teachers, the teachers will have the higher authority over the student. Well, you might say, well, that's proper, right? Well, to a certain degree, perhaps it is, yes. But I want you to understand that teachers have all of the decision making power, as they should, probably. But the process of them managing this power has nothing to do with students, and it does not concern them at all. For instance, you have a bully, like this happens a lot, that this is very frequent. When you get bullied as a student, the teachers try to downplay it. Or when they have the authority to, how can I say this? Well, punish that bully, they may decide differently. While you're the person being victimized, the school, the teachers, or in extent society, the higher ups, like in any institution, have the authority to solve those problems. But you're the victim, but they solve the problems. They have the power, you're the victim. You are the person that keeps that institution alive. As students, you are the reason why that institution exists in the first place. But the teachers have this absolute control over you. I think you can see where I'm going with this. The teachers have absolute authority over students in a way that devalues the student as a subject, or entirely as a group, or gives them such little opportunities that they technically do have the opportunity to present themselves in a meaningful manner, technically. But, very big but again, it is very meaningless, because again, in the end, the decision making power is on the teacher. And when you have to make an official complaint or when you have to do official paperwork for the student, the student's parents have to come over. I'm going to say again that it is very normal that teachers have more knowledge, more wisdom, the parents do, and that children shouldn't be just allowed to do whatever they want. I'm not saying that. That's silly. But we should be able to explain to children and make them participate in their own livelihood and their own management. And we should be able to tell them why we're doing certain things and how it needs to be that way and how we are not oppressing those children. Because, like, I am very, very certain that in most places of the world, teachers have the right to say, well, it's none of your business. And they will be 100% right. Because they have the power to do so. Because the student is just a meaningless person. Like, with that big pile of students that is already powerless, one student is very weak, very susceptible, because it doesn't have the experience, it doesn't have any economic, financial independence. It is already being controlled by their parents for good or bad. I'm just going to tie all of this back into saying that the school, the higher institution, has absolute power over the lower class, which are the students. And while it may be necessary in some circumstances, apologies, my grandmother brought me tea. Anyway, um, the school has the absolute authority over the students, and the person that is the student is essentially meaningless because they are just one singular thing, and they face the threat of being persecuted by both their parents, of which they probably love because they're supposed to love, and by the school, which has the opportunity and the power to end their entire life career and dreams. While they may not be able to kill them, thank God, they do have the power to end that student's misbehavior according to them. Let's say I don't like my principal. I'm giving an example, right? And I rebel against that. And I say, you're doing a very bad job, Mr. Teacher. You're doing a very poor job. Well, he that person can't just immediately expel me. But in most countries, again, I'm saying this, and especially in less developed countries, they have the tendency to think of this as misbehavior, misconduct, and overall improper behavior. So they can issue you a warning. They can literally kick you out of the school, or they can just make your life a living nightmare with all the power they have because they can change your grades, they can give you warnings, they can call you out of the class whenever they want, right? Because it's in their right to do so. You see where I'm going with this. You are merely a toy just that's being swung around. And also, let's go back to saying how this danger, how this power is being exercised. I'm just gonna give one example, of which everybody probably knows at this point. Panopticon. This is a thought experiment, probably, if I'm framing this right, that was presented by Michel Foucault. Foucault, probably something like that. And the experiment goes like this. There's this circular. The thought goes like this. There's this cylinderly shaped prison with multiple floors, and all of the prison cells see this one empty space that's in the middle. Like, think of it like a hollow cylinder, right? They all see the same empty space like this, and they see the inside. And in the middle of that, this is a 2D illustration, but anyway, in the middle of that is a watchtower with a guard inside. As per human nature, this one guard can watch any of these cells one at a time. That tower cannot see everywhere all at once. If I'm looking at you, I can't look at the person at the back. But it the twist is that there's this mechanism that allows the guard to see you but you can never see the guard. So you're always under the threat of being observed by that guard. And over time, you become that you learn that you may be being watched, you may not be being watched, but the threat of you being potentially observed makes you behave normally. Let's say that there are 30 prisoners and the guard can only watch one. But if that person is caught trying to escape or trying to start a riot, they will be, let's say, killed, right? So they can't kill everybody because you are like 30 people and the guards can't react to all of you instantly. But in a normal circumstance, you will not risk that because you may be being watched. And if we apply this to school, you may be being observed at any given time. Teachers cannot see you all the time, but they have the capacity to do so. Maybe somebody else is watching you. Maybe that teacher will come around that corner and catch you doing something bad. Well, I do realize that committing crimes is a bad thing, but this is how they make you, how any of the systems may make you into self-controlling machines. They don't have to directly control you. They just have to make you believe that you may be controlled, so that you govern your own actions according to their desires. With this, we went over how schools work and how systems of a school in particular may may function. This isn't necessarily morally evil. This is just how humanity and our current day society governs itself. Good and bad really become blurry with these matters. So think of it like the circumstance that's being that's happening right now. It's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad. And with that, let's move on to the second part, the resistance. Well, when you think of it, like most students don't, because most students are not that bright or not that educated or simply not that mature yet to realize that they're being oppressed in a systematic level, or even if they do realize that, they do not concern with themselves with such problems. The ones that do, and that do try to go into higher levels of understanding as to how systems work and how they can combat these oppressions, good and bad, they receive hope. They get hopeful, right? When you talk with your friends and you convince them to go, make a difference, to make a complaint, to stand together and to try to change something, you get hope. Well, this will always happen. In the history of mankind, people will try to be free, people will try to exert themselves, always. But the thing is, both adults and students and youngsters and children, anybody, will, when they're not facing any sort of real danger, try to change the world immediately. They will say, "Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's change things," which is great, which is great, which can be great. But, the killer point is this: people, the second they are under the threat of being persecuted, or someone that could have been them is persecuted, lose all of their hope and learn a very valuable lesson. What do I mean by this? Let's say, me, I kind of personally had this happen to me, but I'm not going to Go into that. Let's say we are a group of 30 people just walking down the street demanding something important, something that will cause inconvenience to the higher ups, whatever higher ups that are governing us. And well, we're all hopeful. We don't think that we're going to be under problem. We think we're safe, and we could be. Anyway, one of or a couple of one of us get captured, and they are threatened with losing their what they have, losing their job, being expelled from school, whatever. Or maybe they are directly expelled, And let's say we still have 27 people, right? Three got captured, three got expelled, the 27 remain. We could still change things, right? Because they can't do it all to all of us. But when we see that happen to somebody in our same class level, we put themselves in we put ourselves in their shoes and think this might happen to me. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to step back. I'm scared. I don't want to lose everything that I have because we don't have the faith that the others will guard us. Because you couldn't save them, right? Those three people got expelled. You couldn't save those people. So, what would happen to you if you got expelled and they couldn't save you? There's no real guarantee that the remaining 24, if another got three got expelled, will be able to change things. And the end result could be that six of you getting expelled and nothing changing. That could be the end result. While, and thing is, if you persisted with your efforts as this whole big group and stayed organized, this will not be the case because they can't put all of you out of the school. They can't expel all of you. Like, how is the school going to function, right? That's a big problem to them and to the entirety of society. But since there is no guarantee, since you don't have that much hope, since you're not that organized, since you're not that uh, technically thinking of things in the heat of the moment, you give up. Let's say you're 24 people, three more got expelled, and three give up, 21. And the remaining 21 people will think, oh, some people are giving up. If some more of us get expelled, we will have even less power to defend ourselves. So I should also leave. Three more left, 18. And you see where I'm going with this. This repeats and repeats and repeats. And in the end, the people who got expelled just sit with what they had. And the remaining people that were not persecuted actually just lose all of their hope for a change, and they get scared into not doing this sort of thing again. And this is the part where hope is a weapon. And with that, I open chapter 3, Hope as Oppression. You had your hopes as a group, you began, but you couldn't persist for whatever reason. Maybe you were actually utterly overpowered. Maybe you had your emotional reasons, or maybe something else. But the end result is that everybody in that group learned something, which is that these sort of movements did not work. Rebelling didn't work. And the people who tried, some of them, got expelled. And if you try to do this sort of thing again, that might be you next, and there will be nobody to save you. So, in the end, hope actually becomes a weapon against you because without hope you cannot do something new, you cannot rebel, you cannot complain, you cannot try to change things. But as your hope is utterly crushed, your hope becomes a very mislearned lesson, kind of like learned helplessness. Your hope becomes literal learned helplessness because you remember your hopes being crushed and you don't want to put yourself in that technical and emotional dangerous space again. So, as you drift back into that mindset, I'm talking about the masses here. It doesn't have to apply to everybody, but you get my point. As you digress, as you go down in that mindset, lose your hope, you actively kill the hopes of others for the good, or for the better, or for the worse. Because as you lose your hope, the other people think, oh, this person tried to do something. This person was very hopeful, but now they lost their hope. So there is probably nothing to be hopeful here, and they lose their hope. So not you don't only become a machine that controls itself to the desires of others, you actively teach others that whatever you had in mind previously does not work, even if it could. And this just makes this is the story of our society and the humankind. Hope begins, hope is crushed, people learn a lesson, and nothing is changed for a very good while. So the lesson we should take here is we need to be smart with our actions. We need to gain a better technical understanding, systematic understanding of how things work, and we should be able to look into their historical uh, foundations. And remember that we shouldn't never lose hope. Even if you're being persecuted for whatever reason, you should keep that hope close to your heart. If you ask me, this is my personal thought. It doesn't have to be against schools. This is literally in every aspect of life. Like in systematic things, you could be wrong. Those things happen. But in general, everyday life, you should never lose your hope. If something looks bad, you shouldn't immediately give up. Maybe giving up is the thing that's like the consequences of giving up is the thing that is killing your hope. Staying hopeful will never harm you if you are, behaving correctly or being smart about your actions. So my overall message with this video was to say that hope is a strong weapon that can be used for both sides. Hope gets you up, but the stronger you get up, the stronger you fly, the worse you crash into things. And keeping your hope up is a very vital lesson that every human being can benefit from. The invincible human spirit is always going to prevail, maybe not for you, but for others. Where there is mankind, there will always be a search for peace and there will always be hope. So I hope that you keep your hopes up. Don't get depressed over things that don't work or that seemingly don't work, and just keep your spirits up, because regardless, you did what you thought was right, what you thought suited you best. And losing hope or just giving up entirely on something for that very reason, it doesn't really make sense. You could say that it harmed you, but it also taught you a lesson. It taught you how to smart behave more correctly, how to be smarter, how to be more thoughtful about something. And that lesson in of itself should be giving you more hope, and you should use your knowledge and use your wisdom to spread more positive hope to others, not just, pump others with hopelessness and say, you can't change anything, it's useless, they're going to crush all of you. Even if that's the case, there is always hope that that might not be the case. And with this, I'm ending this video. I hope you enjoyed my more more formal attempt at analyzing something and analyzing an structure. Going to try to make more structured videos, and I'm going to try to make more in-depth analyses about things. I recently bought the Capital, all three books from Karl Marx. I'm going to read these. I'm going to do book reviews about each one, and we'll do a total holistic review of the book. And so stay tuned for that. And remember that the indomitable human spirit never loses. And that's it. If you like this video, make sure to like it. If you have any thoughts, any recommendations, any complaints about the video, make sure to drop them in the comments. I will note that I am no professional, I am no sociologist, I am no psychologist. I'm just an 18-year-old dude who has thoughts and who has very high hopes for everybody that's around him and for every system that he's in. I'm just a hopeful person that's trying to share his thoughts with others. So please do keep that in mind as you comment or perceive this video. And with that, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.